The OneAcademy is the heart of our company. Cryptocurrency is not an easy product. It's a very innovative product based on technology and based on very, very complex concepts. For us to be part of this financial revolution, to be part of cryptocurrency and of a community, we need to understand exactly what we do and what we talk about. And this is why we have the OneAcademy. The OneAcademy provides you with concepts, provides you with explanation on cryptocurrency and on the financial world. I would encourage everybody to join the courses, to do the certificates, and to understand thoroughly how to use cryptocurrency, what cryptocurrency is, and how we can change the world by using cryptocurrency. OneAcademy. Learn today, lead tomorrow. The OneAcademy is the heart of our company. Cryptocurrency is not an easy product. It's a very innovative product based on technology and based on very, very complex concepts. For us to be part of this financial revolution, to be part of cryptocurrency and of a community, we need to understand exactly what we do and what we talk about. And this is why we have the OneAcademy. The OneAcademy provides you with concepts, provides you with explanation on cryptocurrency and on the financial world. I would encourage everybody to join the courses, to do the certificates, and to understand thoroughly how to use cryptocurrency, what cryptocurrency is, and how we can change the world by using cryptocurrency. OneAcademy. Learn today, lead tomorrow.
Wayne, it's over to you.
Good morning, all. Greetings, good day, good evening to all in the Caribbean and to the rest of the world. Welcome to our OneAcademy Zoom call 2020. We certainly appreciate you being on the call with us. My name is Wayne Wilson, and I'm from the sunny Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. I am your host today with a reminder of why we are here. Our founder, Dr. Ruja Inatova, has said, "We learn today so we can lead tomorrow," a very profound statement. What is OneAcademy? OneAcademy is an innovative e-learning platform covering a broad range of topics, including finance, areas such as financial assets, asset management, Forex, the stock exchange, cryptocurrency, and more. Our mission is to provide our students with the guidance and educational material needed to achieve financial literacy. OneAcademy was developed by finance experts and academics. It is highly structured and easy to understand. You learn at your own pace and can be part of the future of global finance reset. Our intention is to give you a unique sense of understanding facts which you can use to enhance your knowledge and daily lives, as well as promote our core product, OneAcademy, and the benefits of our ecosystem. I encourage you to take copious notes to assist you in your quest to become certified, knowledgeable, and wise business leaders and money managers. Our presenter today is none other than my fellow IMA, Mr. Alvin Morton. And a quick Short background on Mr. Morton. Alvin joined One Life in April 2017. An educated minor, he completed levels 1 and 2 and was one of the earliest OneAcademy presenters. An industrial engineer graduate from the University of the West Indies. He is also the holder of an MBA from the Harriet Wealth University, PMP, and a PMP, sorry, from the project management industry. He is also an avid Toastmaster of 9 years in April. Alvin is married with 2 daughters and resides with his family in Lindor Village, Chagonas. One of his famous quotes, "It is not the mind, the movement of the clock that produces the newness of life. It is the movement of the mind." A quote from Mr. T.D. Jakes, which Alvin passionately loves. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to please help me welcome Mr. Alvin Morton.
Pleasant good day, or good morning, or good evening to each and every one of us on this call today. Thank you very much, Wayne, for that kind introduction. And today we want to talk about debt. If we have been following the series of lectures over the last few weeks, we would notice that we have been covering some topics, starting with things like quantitative easing, inflation, and now we're looking at debt. And these 3 things are going to continue to dominate and determine our next step or steps forward, either by design or by default. But let's get into the presentation itself. The words of Chris Cuomo from Cuomo Prime Time. Let's get after it. Permit me to share my screen as we begin to talk a bit about debt, and in the process learn what our OneAcademy has to say about this 4-letter word. To open proceedings, let's look at some quotations. Noted financial analyst or advisor, perhaps might be more correct to say, Susie Orman. Bad debt is sacrificing your future day needs for your present day desires. Paul Krugman says that debt is one person's liability, but another person's asset. But look at this quote from Norm Franz. Gold is the money of kings. Silver is the money of gentlemen. Barter is the money of peasants. But debt is the money of slaves. Ralph Waldo Emerson, noted American essayist, lecturer, and poet, says that a man in debt is so far a slave. And to close in the way that we began these quotations, Susie Orman says, if you have debt, I'm willing to bet that general clutter is a problem for you too. Some things to consider as we begin to contemplate this 4-letter word called debt. We also need to recognize that this session, as with all other OneAcademy sessions, and the information contained therein, are dispensed but not intended to be construed or understood as a source of financial information. We all know that One Life is not an investment company, but it is still our view that information, that this information will be of great benefit as we undertake the due diligence surrounding this matter. Some definitions. As is my custom and habit, I like to quote and borrow information from investopedia.com, and I'd invite all of our listeners to do the same. Challenge the information, go through the process, look at different views, look at different ways of saying things, and therefore, by extension, develop discernment, develop that ability where the knowledge becomes one with you, and you are able to have it at the command of your mental fingertips. Debt is money borrowed by one party from another. Seems simple enough. Many corporations and individuals use debt as a method of making large purchases that they could not afford under normal circumstances. Another word that is used in the financial circles for this practice is leverage. In a debt-based financial arrangement, the borrowing party gets permission to borrow money under the condition that it must be paid back at a later date, usually with interest. That means, therefore, that there are different types of debt. And according to debt.org, you have good debt, which allows you to manage your finances more effectively, to leverage your wealth, that's a word that was used just now, to buy things you need and to handle unforeseen emergencies. And some examples of good debt, and we may not all agree with these examples as articulated by debt.org, taking out a mortgage, buying things that save time and money, buying essential items, investing in yourself by borrowing for more education, or to consolidate debt. And I think in this particular instance, it might be exchanging expensive debt for less expensive debt so that you will have more take home and more income to do with, as is most prudent. Bad debt, anything that decreases in value the minute after you buy it. And we can only not look too far. Credit cards, payday loans, automobile loans would perhaps qualify under this definition. It describes many of life's basic necessities like clothes, automobiles, and that 60-inch flat screen TV you need to watch. Must have it, it would look so good. Can't pay for them with cash? Consider at least settling for off-brand clothes and a 43-inch TV instead. Some options to consider. Again, it is your choice and our choice in terms of what we finally do. But I think Chris Martinson gives a nice view on debt, and I'm going to allow him to tell us more about that. So let's get going with this video.
With the background you've received to this point, covering money creation, exponential growth, and the immensity of trillions, we are now ready to go into the first big E, the economy, in greater depth. It's the data in these next few chapters that leads me to conclude that the next 20 years are going to be completely unlike the last 20 years. So we begin our economic inquiry with debt. Our debt-based money system has a fundamental shortcoming. It requires infinite growth to remain functional, and infinite growth forever is simply not possible. So studying debt gives us clues to the size of the predicament in which we are in, and perhaps hints at the timing of when things might unfold. Let's begin with a few definitions. A financial debt is a contractual obligation to repay a specified amount of money at some point in the future. The concept of debt is thoroughly characterized within the legal system, so we can say that a debt is a legal contract providing money today in exchange for repayment in the future, with interest, of course. Debt comes in many forms. Auto loans and mortgage debt are known as secured debts because there's a recoverable asset attached to the debt. Credit card debt is known as unsecured because no specific asset can be directly seized in the event of a default. For you and I, there are only two ways to settle a debt: pay it off or default on it. But if you have a printing press like the government does, a third option exists: printing money to pay for the debt. This third method is a poorly disguised form of taxation, since it forcefully removes value from all existing money and transfers that value to the debt holders. I view it as a form of default, but one that preferentially punishes savers and those least able to bear the impact of inflation. The pure debt obligations of the U.S. government as of December 2013 stand at more than $17 trillion. And this is only the debt. Once we add in the liabilities of the U.S. government, chiefly Medicare and Social Security obligations, we get a number that is 5 to 8 times larger than that. We'll be discussing these liabilities in a future chapter, so that's all I'm going to say about them right now. Here, we are simply focused on debt, and it's enough to note that debt is only a part of the whole story. Okay, next, this is a chart of total U.S. debt. That's federal, state, municipal, corporate, and private debts in the red line, compared against total national income in the yellow line. The total debt in the United States at the end of 2013 stood at over $57 trillion. That's 57 stacks of $1,000 bills, each of which is 67.9 miles high. Now, if we adjust these debt levels for both population and inflation over time, so we're comparing apples to apples, we find that in 1952, there was the equivalent of $76,000 of total debt per person, and that today, the number is $183,000. At $183,000 per head, this means that today the average family of four in America is associated with roughly $735,000 of debt. This is now more than twice as high as back when a single income was sufficient to sustain an average family. This is a useful way to look at our debt loads because it doesn't really matter if the debt is owed by a government agency or corporation or an individual, because these are really the debts of our country. And all debts get paid through the actions of people. So examining the debts on a per capita or household basis gives us a sense of the situation. Can debts forever grow faster than the incomes that service them? Can the average household earning a bit more than $50,000 realistically pay back nearly $750,000 in debt? The answers to both of these questions is no and almost certainly not, respectively. Now, am I saying that all debt is bad? Nope, not at all. Time for another definition. Debt that can be best described as investment debt provides the opportunity to pay itself back. An example might be a college loan offering the opportunity to earn a higher wage in the future. Another would be a loan to expand the seating of a successful restaurant. In the parlance of bankers, these are examples of self-liquidating debt, meaning that the loans boost future revenues and therefore have a means of paying themselves back. But what about loans that are merely consumptive in nature, such as those taken out for a fancier car, or for vacations, or for more war material? These are called non-self-liquidating debts because they do not generate any additional future revenue. So not all debts are bad, only too much unproductive borrowing is bad. Now, between 2000 and 2010, total credit market debt in the U.S. fully doubled from $26 trillion to over $53 trillion. And a very large proportion of that was of the non-self-liquidating variety. This has profound implications for the future. So what is debt really? Well, debt provides us money to spend today. Perhaps we buy a nicer car and we enjoy that car today. But in the future, the loan payments represent money that we do not have then to spend on other items or to save. So we can say that debt represents future consumption taken today. As long as it is just my decision to go into debt and the repayment is my responsibility, then everything's cool. However, once we consider that our current levels of debt will require the efforts and incomes of future generations to pay them back, we start to trend over into the moral aspect of this story. Is it really proper for one generation to consume well beyond its means and expect the following generations to forego their consumption in order to pay it all back? That is precisely our current situation, and these charts say as much. This is our legacy moment. We are piling up debts that we ourselves cannot pay back, and much of that borrowed money is simply being used to support consumption, not grand infrastructure investments that future taxpayers will benefit from. Is this fair? Is it moral? Now, we learned earlier in the crash course that money can be viewed as a claim on human labor. And we just learned that debt is really just a claim on future money. So we can put these two statements together and arrive at a new key concept. Debt is a claim on future human labor. When we get to the section on baby boomers and the demographic challenge our country faces, I'll be recalling this important concept. When viewed historically and compared to gross domestic product, the current levels of debt are without precedent, and the chart even suggests that we are living in the mother of all credit bubbles. Current total credit market debt stands at more than 350% of total gross domestic product. We can see on this chart the last time debts got even remotely close to current levels was back in the 1930s, and that bears a bit of explanation. The easy credit policies of the Fed gave us the roaring 20s, and then a burst credit bubble, which was followed by 11 years of economic contraction and hardship, which we now refer to as the Great Depression. Note that the debt-to-GDP ratio did not start to climb until after 1929. What's the explanation for this? Were more loans being made? Nope. The chart climbs here at this point because while the debts remained, the economy fell away from under them, creating this spike. In the absence of the Great Depression anomaly, our country has always held less than 180% of our GDP in debt. It's only since the mid-1980s that relationship was violated, so we can say that our current experiment with these levels of debt is only 3 decades in the making, and therefore an historically brief phenomenon. And it is this chart, more than any other, that leads me to conclude that the next 20 years are going to be completely unlike the last 20 years. I just cannot see how we can pull off another 20 just like the one highlighted here. But what if we did? What would be required if we wanted or expected or even required debts to grow at the same pace between 2014 and 2044 as they did between 1984 and 2014? Because debt grew by an average of 8% per year over those prior 30 years, it means that debt was doubling every 9 years. If we somehow managed to continue that 8% rate of growth over the next 30 years, we would discover that total U.S. credit market debt would then stand at more than $570 trillion, or $520 trillion higher than today. What would we borrow that much money for? Total student borrowing is only $1 trillion. All credit cards, maybe $2 to $3 trillion. The entire residential real estate mortgage market is in the vicinity of $10 trillion. Put all those forms together and you don't even come up with the 20 in the number 520 trillion. Okay, back to this chart. Based on the shape of this chart, our entire financial universe has made a rather substantial and collective assumption about the future. Because a debt is a claim on the future, each incremental expansion of the level of debt is an implicit assumption that the future will be larger than today, which means there is a very profound assumption baked right into this debt chart, and that is the future will be larger than the present. Here's what I mean. A debt is always paid off in the future, and loans are made with the expectation that they'll be paid back with interest. If more credit is extended this year than last, then that means there's an expectation, an assumption, that the ability exists to pay those loans back in the future. Otherwise, the loans would not be made. Now, given that our debts are now over 350% of GDP, there is an explicit assumption here that the future GDP is going to be larger than today's. Much larger. More cars sold, more resources consumed, more money earned, more houses built, all of it must be larger than today just to offer the chance of paying back the loans we've already taken out. But each quarter we see that new debts are being made at a rate roughly 5 to 6 times faster than growth in the underlying economy, which means that we're still piling up the assumption that the future will be bigger than the present. Even with a fairly optimistic assessment of future growth, this trajectory is unsustainable. Our banks, pension funds, governmental structure, and everything else tied to the continued expansion of debt has an enormous stake in its perpetual growth. And so here we come to our next key concept of the crash course. Our debt markets assume that the future will be much larger than the present. But what happens if that's not true? What if the means to repay all those claims does not arrive in the future? Well, broadly speaking, if that comes to pass, there's only one result, with 2 very different means of making it happen. The result is that the claims, the debts, must be diminished somehow, if not destroyed. And the means by which that could happen involves either a process of debt defaults or by inflation. Now, the defaults are easy to explain. The debts don't get repaid, and the holders of that debt don't get their money back. Boom, claims are destroyed. And inflation is the means to diminish the current and future claims. The inflation route can be confusing, so think of it this way. What if you sold your house to someone and elected to hold the note, the debt, for say $500,000? The terms call for the note to be repaid all at once in 10 years as a single payment of $650,000. So you get your principal and some interest. Well, what if in 10 years you got paid your $650,000 right on time, but time has reduced the purchasing power of those dollars so much that $650,000 will only buy this house? Yeah, you got paid all right, but your claim on the future was vastly diminished by inflation. In the default scenario, your money is still worth something, but you don't get it back. In the inflation scenario, you get it back, but it hardly buys anything. In both cases, your future earning power was destroyed, so the impact is very nearly the same, but the means of achieving it are wildly different. So the questions you need to ponder for yourself are, have too many claims been made on the future? And if the answer to that is yes, will we face inflation or defaults as the means of squaring things up? You will arrive at wildly different life decisions depending on whether you answer yes or no to the first question, and inflation or defaults for the second question. So they are well worth pondering. All right, here's what we've learned. 1. Debt is a claim on future human labor. 2. Per capita debt has never been higher. We are in truly unprecedented territory in this country. 3. Debt has increased by $26 trillion in the first decade of the millennium, and most of it was consumptive debt. 4. And finally, our debt markets assume that the future will be much larger than the present. That last insight plays in two critical areas that are coming up in future chapters of the crash course. Our entire economic system, and by extension our way of life, is founded on debt. And debt is founded on the assumption that the future will always be bigger than the present.
Permit me to stop at this stage. I think we certainly get the point that is being made about debt. And although this video was done circa 2013, 2014, it certainly has relevance 6-7 years later, and more than likely is going to be amplified in a much shorter space of time, consistent with what I call exponentialism within the context of the coronavirus now and what is likely to happen post-corona, post-COVID-19. What does our OneAcademy have to say? Page 12, a very clear statement: avoid going into debt. Just look at what high levels of debt did to the Greek economy. Imagine what it can do to your personal budget. In the video, the gentleman, Chris, talked about 350% of GDP. Credit cards and other types of credit instruments are not a very good option. A wise decision to try and reduce or pay off all your debts, including your mortgage. Page 12 also talks about keeping savings. It's not necessary to invest all. You should try to have at least a certain sum of saved money at your disposal. Save money for the down payment of your house. Page 14 talks about having 25%. It's been prescriptive. And it says that you can stick to this amount as an indicator whether you can actually afford that new house or not. Just to restate some key takeaways, we're at 1229. The first one, that is a contractual obligation to repay a specified amount of money at some point in the future. It is a legal contract providing money today in exchange for repayment in the future with interest. It is a claim on future human labor. It is the basis of the entire economic system. We can have good debt that is self-liquidating from the asset cash flow itself. It can be bad, that means it's non-self-liquidating or consumptive. Debt assumes that the future will be larger than the present, and more debt today requires more GDP in the future. Per capita debt has never been higher, and that is set to go to stratospheric levels. Just remember 67.9 miles. Options for settling debt: pay it off. We could default is an option, but just imagine what the rating agencies like Moody's and S&P Global would assign or would comment. We could print money to pay it back. Unserviceable debt can be diminished by default, that is, nothing is received, or through inflation, that is, value is lost, confiscated, or stolen. I really like this slide in terms of the context that it gives to the numbers 1 million, 1 billion, and 1 trillion. And we're talking about multiples of that. Imagine what 6 trillion in $1,000 bills looks like. And of course, $1,000 bills aren't printed. The US dollar is printed in $100 amounts. As we close today's session, Google the terms. This is my call to action, people. Google the terms. Google debt. Google GDP. Get to information sessions or Zoom formation sessions and get into the OneAcademy level 1. You'll be amazed at what's in there. And I like this particular statement by the late Jack Welch, former chairman and CEO of GE. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. Have a super fabulous day, everyone. Continue to stay safe and allow me to return control to Wayne Wilson, our most genial host. Thanks again for the opportunity to present on this Lunch and Learn session.
Incredible. Incredible, Alvin. Once again, well done. I am certain that the people on the call would have had information that will carry their minds to another level. So today we have a deal shaker merchant. We are attempting to get the technology to work to get him on. So let me just, Patrice, by chance, have you gotten him?
When I reached the credit verification ones and I looked at the names of the marketing reports, I'm thinking myself, but
okay, great. So we have Mr. Samuel George's son. I'm just checking to see if we have him on the call. Mr. George, are you on?
So I'm thinking, why are they doing double work one?
Wow. So ladies and gentlemen, let me just read a short bio of Mr. George.
Let me just have a quick discussion with you first to understand.
Wow.
To confirm my suspicions, and I was correct, particularly in the credit card one that is doing.
Okay, here we go.
Whether it's new credit cards, whether it's foreign credit cards, whether it's limit increase, whether it was a switch, whether it's a new color.
Okay, so Mr. George, yeah, you're on? Great, incredible. So let me just give you a short introduction. Mr. George Jr., Mr. Samuel George Jr. has been a physiotherapist for well over 20 years. And he has a couple other areas that he focuses in. He will share some of us with us. As he has been a merchant on the Deal Shaker platform for at least a year to 2 years, having joined the business. So, Mr. George, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Great, great having you on. We know the technology may challenge us, so I want you to go ahead today. First of all, just share with us very briefly what your business as a therapist gives and brings to the Deal Shaker platform.
Okay, so I know some people will think my spectrum is kind of wide, because when they hear physio or massage therapist, they just think go and get a rub and then you go your way. But it's much more than that. I actually deal with injuries. A lot of people develop injuries over a period of time through their ordinary lifestyle, through sports, through just house chores. It could be anything that could throw the body off. And my job is to basically correct those things once you come to me. So I do like spinal resets. I do acupuncture. I do work in regards to repairing nerves, improving circulation, reflexology, deep tissue massage, cupping. I think I said acupuncture already. I'm not sure. You know, and I even started to do basically like sauna treatments for some of my clients because I realized that people who have body pains need a certain type of therapy, and I try my best to provide that for them so that they get the best results in the shortest space of time. Right? I have deals like the one-off deals where you pay per session. I think it's like about 1.25 coin and $300. I have a deal where you come like twice a week for the entire month, where you pay 2,500 and I think it's 8 or 9 coins. And then I have another package where you come 3 times a week. But that's for the more like serious clients who have serious pain and injury, where you pay like 3,000 fiat and I think about 13 coins. Those are the 3 deals that I have right now. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah. I wasn't hearing anything in the background.
We have one of your deals up right now.
Okay.
And it's for 5.91 coins.
1.5 coins. I see one-off deal.
Right, great.
It's like per session.
Right, great. So
like when we have the markets or like deal shakers, you know, people come and see me and they'll pay just for the day or just for that one time, get some crazy results and go home smiling, wishing they had more treatment now. Right? I think you and all could testify to that.
Definitely. You know, but it's all about you today, and definitely from what I have experienced, I had a back injury that you treated me for, and by the next day I was able to do things I was not able to do for just over 90 days. So definitely, yes, it definitely works. And once again, but let me just ask you one thing, Mr. George, as we deal with this. Tell me, in terms of your business, how has being on the Deal Shaker platform profited you in terms of sharing your knowledge?
Oh, well, it has been a serious boost to the business to my business because therapy is kind of seasonal to a point. So when I was in a kind of like a downturn with the business, I wasn't really getting much clients. When we do the deal shakers, you know, that will kind of like boost everything. And sometimes I don't even get rest when I come out for the deal shakers because it's like 2 days straight and I have lines, people waiting to see me just to do therapy. And I try my best to see as much people as I could. But it definitely has created a good impact on my business. And I will never, I will always advise people to, you know, use the business to give your business a serious jump.
Incredible. Well, we know definitely, and we really appreciate you jumping on because we know you're also on the job, on the road. You know, sharing was really a boost to the Deal Shaker platform, as many people would know. So once again, we want to thank you for coming on and keep spreading that good information on the Deal Shaker. We will also ensure that our experiences are shared with other people. So have a good day. Thanks for coming on.
Nice to be able to be on the call with you all. Everybody have a nice day.
Great, thank you. So as we close off today, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have shared knowledge. We pray that not only helps to uplift, but touches somebody else's business to help them to really take another look, if they haven't already begun to do that, at what is available in One Life and the Deal Shaker. So as we close off, I want to say, everybody, please be safe. Remember, we have a call on tonight, 8 p.m. Trinidad time. And once again, we'll be sharing information to really enrich other people's lives. So thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good day.